him. The Terminator nearly collapsed at the finish. The event had reduced him to a walk. Now he's back for revenge. Mark Allen, the Zen Master, so labeled because he is so cool and determined in competition, even mastering the chaos at the finish last year after he won for the 4th time. The Zen Master is back to prove he's unbeatable. Last year, Erin Baker of New Zealand turned the field of the best women in the world into losers. But American Linda Buchanan has trained all year to prove Baker is not invincible. So this afternoon, we bring you the premier professional triathlon event in the world. This is the World Triathlon Championships from Nice, France. Our setting for this spectacular event is, well, the spectacular French Riviera. What some people now call God's country once was ruled by ancient Greeks and Romans. This Mediterranean city may have had many rulers through the centuries, but its personality is now reduced to pure and simple beauty. Nice is the veritable playground of Europe, an expensive postcard of pristine beaches. In fact, you have to look long and hard not to find a patch of scenery you wouldn't want to take home, which may explain why the Impressionist Renoir and Picasso made this home for inspiration. On this day, there are about 1,200 people in town who are not here to get away from it all. They are not here to be inspired or to relax. They have come to race, to put themselves through torture. And they include the world's #1 and #2 ranked triathletes, Mark Allen and Scott Molina. But don't count out young George Hoover, who has plans anyway to knock them both off. Before the race, anybody can dream. At the gun, 1,200 bodies will churn the Mediterranean as they struggle through a 1.8-mile swim. Then it's on the bikes for 75 grueling miles up and through and over the Maritime Alps. A dangerous ride indeed. And if that isn't enough, then after roughly 4 hours of swimming and cycling, they are greeted by a 20-mile run in the heat of the mid-afternoon along the beaches of the French Riviera, where at this point, nothing about this setting seems beautiful except the finish line. And hello again, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien, and we are minutes before the start of this year's World Triathlon Championships. And, you know, I think of minutes before the start of the NBA Finals, or minutes before the U.S. Open Tennis Finals, or minutes before a Super Bowl. Those athletes are noticeably focused on the event. Then you look at this. It looks all very casual, doesn't it? In fact, if you didn't know better, you'd think they were out for a leisurely swim in the ocean, a scenic ride through the mountains, and a run along the beach. But don't let this casual attitude right now fool you. Triathletes have the ability to turn to ice on command and indeed do at the start. In fact, there is nothing leisurely at all about a triathlon. In fact, I've never heard anybody ever say there was anything fun about a triathlon. For Mark Allen, this is an occupation. He gets about $10,000 simply to show up here, and another 10 grand if he shows up first at the finish. Scott Molina earns well into 6 figures as a professional triathlete, even though he's never won the big one. Erin Baker, the women's champion from New Zealand, she brought along some moral support, her fiancé. And though she's the breadwinner in the sport, she still helps him get dressed for the 1.8-mile swim. In fact, let's take a look at the swim course. It is a big rectangle in the Bay of Angels. The swimmers are able to follow the route by aiming for well-marked buoys. They swim as straight a line as possible at the start, then go straight east into the sun for nearly 3/4 of a mile, then complete the rectangle and finish where they all began. This all takes about 40 minutes. The water is a cool 70 degrees, so wear your wetsuits. Understand that getting the right start position is absolutely crucial if you want to win, and of course everybody does. like so many piranhas, 1,166 triathletes begin their odyssey, which will take the best about 6 hours. The not so good or not so lucky will finish maybe 10 hours later. The idea is to just keep going straight ahead, despite the accidental kicks and hits from other swimmers also trying to go straight ahead. The elite ones know how to sprint to the front. And it's every man and woman for themselves. Around the first buoy, the race already begins to take shape. And among the leaders is defending champion Mark Allen. He's 28 years old, and he was an All-American swimmer at the University of California, San Diego. Slashing through the water there not far behind Allen is Scott Molina. Going into this race, he knows Allen will beat him out of the water, so his strategy is to simply stay as close as possible. And up ahead, leading the race in this early stage, are two European swim specialists, who we will tell you now will disappear into obscurity once in the mountains. Linda Buchanan, who won this race in 1983, also has All-American swimming credentials. She's leading the women. But Erin Baker, who was once a national swim champion in New Zealand, matches her stroke for stroke. What was once a confused mass of churning water has now settled into several pockets of competition. And already the women and men are separating themselves from the boys and the girls. The first casualties drag themselves from the water exhausted, the swim unfinished. And it won't get any easier. The bike course chews up the field. They've been defeated by the elements, or in some cases by themselves. They realized they were only pretenders whose dreams on this day turned into nightmares. The Mediterranean Sea, the women are still battling for position. Linda Buchanan leads all contenders, but as expected, Erin Baker is in the hunt. She's a shadow Buchanan cannot erase. And you can be sure they are already thinking about the 75-mile race that is to come through the roller coaster called the Maritime Alps, where Phil Liggett is tracking the leader.
On the lower rungs of the Alpine Mountains, Mark Allen has taken the lead. The four-time champion, never seen as a top cyclist, shows the benefit of a summer training in the Rocky Mountains near Boulder. In heat approaching 80 degrees, plenty of fluid at this stage is essential, and Allen makes full use of the official aid stations. Hoover, a roommate and training partner of Allen's, now has to fight to haul his 6-foot frame up the French mountainside, while Allen, with no one in front as a marker, tries to settle down to the long road ahead. This is an unexpected good start for Mark Allen, and although he is concerned about the tenacious Hoover, he must be thinking about Molina, the cyclist who can't be too far away. With the determination of a gadfly, Hoover struggles in ungainly fashion to keep Allen in his sights. In 1982, Hoover introduced Allen to big-time triathlons. I wonder if he regrets that now. Back down the mountain, Scott Molina offers a smooth style, but that's not enough to stop him falling further back to 2.5 minutes. It's not so much that Molina is riding badly, but that Mark Allen is riding so well. And you can ask George Hoover. As the race heads towards the highest point, Allen is setting a record pace and soon opens a 2-minute gap on Hoover. On his 4 previous victories, Allen has always had to come from behind. But now 2 questions remain. Has he made his move too soon? And will he have enough in reserve for the 20 miles run to follow?
It may be getting lonely for Mark Allen, but for those just emerging from the water, it is anything but lonely. Mass confusion as hundreds or more triathletes arrive at the swim finish, only to have to wait around to get their in time entered. For them, it is pure frustration. But not as frustrating as the women's race is about to become. She doesn't know it now, but Buchanan and Baker are entering the controversy of their careers.
The perched villages of the Provence command views that millionaires can't buy. And from this vantage point, the story of this year's World Championship is plain for all to see. It's been a lonely day for Mark Allen, leading since the Promenade des Anglais in Nice, which is now 50 miles behind him. But in the village of Gillette, with the long descents to the Var Valley to come, the champion leads by over 3 minutes. Scott Molina is fighting a losing battle, a minute behind in the swim, and now, with 25 miles to go to the end of the bike ride, he's even being beaten at his own game, although he's catching everyone else in sight. The River Var fingers the direction of Nice, and Mark Allen feels the pull from a city that has never let him down.
High up in the Maritime Alps, amongst the perched villages and castles, the controversy has begun to unfold in this year's Nice Triathalon. It is centered on the women's competition, where Linda Buchanan is still in the lead. Out of her saddle with equal determination is Erin Baker. Now, at first glance, it could appear that Linda is using a method called drafting, following close behind another competitor to cut down on wind resistance. The rules say you cannot ride directly behind somebody else. It is a judgment call indeed, to be made by race officials if they see it. Just the same, if this is what she's doing, it's illegal. It is also illegal to get outside help, but that's what Erin Baker's sister has been doing, offering split times as she tries to catch up. Unaware of any of this, Linda Buchanan forges ahead as fast as she can. She won the race in 1983 and is determined to take the title from Erin, who won last year. Buchanan is, however, well aware that she must do well in the bike, simply because her #1 challenger is so good in the run. So she digs deep. Baker, meantime, is still getting help.
Okay, minute 22, Erin.
But it is she who is doing the accusing.
I said, I hope you've got pictures of Linda Buchanan drafting.
And how did she know this? Her sister.
Did you see her doing it?
Huh?
Have you seen
She's
her
drafted the whole race.
Linda has now reached the foot of the mountains, fighting severe headwinds, but riding smoothly alongside a competitor. Well on her way to the transition to the 20-mile run. About a half a mile back, Erin's sister brings us up to date.
I think that Linda did a lot of drafting down the hill. It could be a very fair race, but Erin was 1 minute behind her at one stage. When she got down the bottom of the hill, she was 2.5.
Do you think she's drafting?
She's stuck with a big group. I mean, I just wish it could be a fair race.
Unaware of all the accusations of drafting and cheating, Mark Allen has left the transition area for the final time. He paces 20 miles along the most famous shoreline in Europe. Allen Allen doesn't know what it's like to be beaten. He's the only man ever to have won this race. The only man ever to have held the title World Triathlon Champion. Still going the other way is Scott Molina, second on the road, but now almost 5 minutes behind Allen. And George Hoover, with Molina in his sights, has ridden an excellent mountain stage. With shirt on one shoulder, he's half ready for the transition. The challengers fly by. And now everyone knows where they stand. The only race left is for second place. Is a professional triathlete. He trains up to 7 hours a day, every day, to make his living. Victory here is worth $10,000 in prize money, but much more in the endorsements that follow. Triathlons have taken Molina from rags to riches, and his wife and child from a trailer house to a seaside home in California.
Along the shore, the controversy surrounding the women's race is the talk of the day. It is now a two-woman race. Buchanan and Baker have left the field behind. Buchanan in the lead, Aaron Baker in the hunt. But there are already allegations of disqualifications.
If anybody receives any form of outside assistance during the race, they will be disqualified. There's no, they may be disqualified, they will be disqualified.
At the beach has a parking lot for yachts, the background for the triathlon. Now 5 hours old, and for the last 4, there has been no challenge at all for the leader, Mark Allen.
Mark Allen, making frequent use of the official aid stations, which come approximately every 2 kilometers along the promenade, is concerned only about fatigue and cramping up. His rivals are no longer a threat. But for George Hoover, life is more complicated. And still wearing the trunks he used in the swim, he has again saved time in the transition and moved out in front of Scott Molina. What a disappointing day for Molina. The most successful triathlete ever has never won the big one. Even worse, he has to still beat George Hoover for second place. So, as the 2 roommates cross, Hoover on the right acknowledges Allen. The women's race is a personal battle for Erin Baker, the defending champion from New Zealand. Earlier, she had accused Linda Buchanan of drafting. But now, with still 17 miles to run, Baker is closing in on Buchanan, who's been ahead since leaving the swim almost 4 hours ago. On Baker's shoulder is sister Philippa, but Baker shouldn't need any help here, because as a strong runner, this is where Baker won the title a year ago. And no one was accusing anyone of anything then. Buchanan does not know how near Baker has come. For many miles, Linda Buchanan has nurtured the hopes of regaining the title she last held in 1983. But now her most feared adversary has caught up. And reality hurts as much as the effort. In front of the largest triathlon crowd ever, Mark Allen runs through a corridor of sound to his 5th successive world title. The 29-years-old American will wear #1 again next year. And after this record-breaking performance, who will ever beat him? And one of the first to say well done to Mark was Pat O'Brien.
Mark, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How's it feel?
Hey, that was I had a great race today. I saw George Hoover at the turnaround.
Your training partner.
He was really close, and so he kept the race honest. I really had to push the last 10, the 10 miles coming back.
Was it different this year? Last year you were hunted, or you were the hunter, and this year you're hunted.
Yeah, I was in the lead, you know, pretty much from most of the bike and all the way through the run. The thing about being in the lead is you don't know where the other people are, so mentally it's really tough because you know that at any second if your legs cramp up or something, those guys will make the time up on you.
Are you the best in the world?
Well, today I had a really good race. You know, you can only go day by day, and today I really had a good one.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Behind, Molina has one move left to make, and with a final effort he passes George Hoover and runs on into second place. The extra effort worth an additional $2,000 in prize money, but still no title. George Hoover was left to finish third.
Well, Aaron Baker has left Linda Buchanan and is now being paced through 6-minute miles by a good friend. Indeed, for the past 5 miles, the pair has run away from Linda. And now Aaron's sister, Philippa, who you recall giving her split times in the bike competition, she now takes a more active role, giving her liquids in a silver bottle, done outside official aid stations, and knowing it's a clear violation of event rules, not to mention in full view of race marshals. Linda Buchanan, who's been competing without the help of a support team, continues to run through the midday heat on the driest part of the course. Still, Aaron's sister continues to time the intervals between the first 2 women. And she'll take her rented scooter to the front, give Aaron the interval, and then from time to time pass that silver bottle to her once again. And there's that bottle again. This is a good time to note that outside aid in endurance events are becoming commonplace, but expressly forbidden. Yet the rules are seldom enforced, even if they occur on national television.
Look at this. What are they doing?
The Chicago Marathon, 1985, an illegally passed bottle, a shared drink among the lead women. A violation, but no disqualification. This type of thing now seemingly an epidemic.
There's sugar in the water, and you can taste it. That's unusual to see 2 athletes, first of all, passing a bottle.
The pressure is on Ingrid. The other runners don't feel any pressure at all. They're going out and hopefully running pre-hours.
Who is this, Joan?
I believe that's Ingrid's physician. She came with a whole entourage of people, and I'm sure she has people staked out along the course.
What's he giving her?
He's handing her a solution, and it almost looks like pills. Maybe they're cramp pills. I don't know what they are.
Is that legal?
You heard him say, John, 6:30.
Triathalons have had their share of incidents, outside aid, like pacing of competitors during the race.
More than 2 minutes behind, running now with her brother Chris, who is trying to pace her.
6:30. Just keep this up and you get her.
I'm not so sure if it's legal for someone else to grab her bicycle. My understanding is that you were offered no assistance at all from anybody whatsoever during this race except for to tell somebody which way to go.
Drafting in the cycling portion is rampant and difficult to enforce. That is, except when the leaders are involved. And last summer, a crackdown and rare disqualification in the Chicago Triathalon.
We've had notification even before they crossed the finish line that Mark Allen was disqualified. I can't believe they would do that while he was coming down the running lane. Scott Molina has been declared the winner. I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk after this.
Patricia Puntos did not win after all. Her apparent first-place finish has been disqualified for drafting during the bicycle portion of today's Bud Light Ironman Triathlon. So
I think there's also been a permissiveness in a lot of these events to include triathlons that have allowed some of these higher paid, more desirable athletes to do some strange things. I think the burden now falls back on not only the sport, but the event managers to address these situations so they don't happen again.
Although he has seen blatant cheating in his own Chicago Marathon, organizer Bob Bright has never disqualified anybody. And here in Nice, you wonder, as Aaron Baker hears the roar of the crowd and anticipates the paycheck along with her appearance money, you wonder if they will enforce the rules. And what of Linda Buchanan and the drafting allegations? Were the race marshals there? Did they see it? Lots of questions surrounding the event as the winner replaces the joy of winning with a defense of her actions.
I don't think there's enough water stops on this run. Never have. And, you know, everybody gets assistance on the run. Yeah, sure. You know, I was out on the bike and I was really tired, and, you know, I got no hard feelings against Linda now whatsoever.
Do you think they might take action on this at all?
Oh, I can't see why. I mean, everyone was getting drinks on the run, you know, not just me. So, you know, I suppose everybody did something wrong perhaps in this. You know, the swim was chaotic.
It was? What does that say about the event then, if everybody's doing something wrong?
Well, I think there's too many people in this race. It's a great race, but there's too many people in it.
8 hours after a thrilling victory, they took the title away from Erin Baker. 8 hours training every day, traveling halfway around the world, all for nothing. For Phil Liggett, I'm Pat O'Brien.